going to call the meeting to order. I am calling the meeting to order. Welcome. And as a first order of business, I would like to do a roll call. And when I call your name, please just signify present. Lisa Hewitt-Dick.
Present.
Lori Gibbons.
Present.
Sean Keneally.
Present.
Mike Sardina.
Present.
Good. There's a bunch of people who I will call out when they get here, but we have a quorum. So thank you for being here. I'm going to practice my sharing screen just a moment. Where is it? Good, you can see that. We gotta get stuff out of the way. I would like to do this with others when they come, but we'll just get started quickly. And just if you could, even though I think everybody in this room knows each other, others may not. And if we could just walk through quickly on this. Lisa, maybe you could take the lead.
Sure. Let's see. My name is Lisa Hewitt-Dick. I live at 27 Parker Ave. I inquired today of my spouse about how long we've lived in town, and he tells me that as of September 28th, we've been in town 30 years. And I should have known that because I think my son's birthday was on that day. I've served on several committees in town. I was a member of the zoning board. I was a member of a special commission on drug and alcohol use. As my occupation, I'm the general counsel for a state agency. And in that capacity, I'm on the senior management team, which is the oversight administrative agency for the entire state, with thousands of private attorneys and hundreds of private attorneys. As far as other positions I've been involved with, I've been appointed to, by all three branches of government. I've been on a special commission for this Supreme Judicial Court. I've been appointed to in leadership roles for the gubernatorial commission, most recently on civil forfeiture. And I also worked with members of the legislature on other special legislative commissions. So I've been in a lot of government positions, both professionally and as a citizen, trying to contribute. What my interest is in the, and as far as the local organizations, leadership organizations, as far as connected to the harbor, I have been a long-term member of the board of the Cohasset Maritime Institute. I am their delegate on this committee, and I just love the harbor, and we have the ability to live here, and it's very important to me to preserve it and to work toward making it the best it can be. Additionally, I am the present chair/coordinator for the Harbor Committee subcommittee, which a working committee, which is dealing with governance.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Mike.
Mike Sardina, 100 Pond Street, Unit 56. I've been in Cohasset for 18 years. I am currently on the Harbor Committee only, and have been on it for about 3 years now. I joined about a year after it was actually originally commissioned. My position has been one of supporting some of the goals of the Harbor's master plan, which had to do with connectivity to the village, and also related to the CHIP subcommittee, which is the Cohasset Harbor Improvements Projects planning group, in which case I'm involved with peripherally with understanding what's going on with the resiliency, also the Harbor Walk, the Captain's Walk planning, which is currently sort of quiet because we've been waiting for the resiliency study. But it's ready to be dusted off again and represented to members of the town. My interest in the harbor is that I think this is one of Massachusetts' most beautiful seaside towns. The harbor is a unique asset. It's a unique resource. And I think it's underutilized relative to its landside issues. And so I'm very interested in being able to contribute in any way relative to making that a more accessible and enjoyable pedestrian experience for not only the residents, but whoever comes to visit.
Thank you, Mike. Maybe I'll go to another member, Sean.
Thank you very much, George. My name is Sean Keneally. I live at 84 Old Pasture Road in Cohasset. I have been a member of the sailing club for the past, I've been in Cohasset for the past 25 years, but I've been a member of the sailing club for maybe the past 15, 18 years. And, our interest is just to see as many kids as we possibly can out on the harbor. We probably have 220 young sailors sailing on the ocean, which is great to see. And we have young, Cohasset high schoolers teaching them to sail, which is great stuff. And that is my interest with Cohasset. I mean, in the Harbor Committee, and just making sure that it's accessible to all people.
Perfect. Thank you, Sean. Susan, I know you're just walking in. I'll introduce myself and then you can copy it.
Yeah.
But
Sorry.
anyway, happy to be the newly elected chair of the Harbor Committee with Baumgarten. 260 Forest Avenue. I think going into my 34th year living in Cohasset. And my experience in town government actually started with being a member of the CHIP working group here. And then that transpired that I became a member of the Harbor Committee. So this is my first foray into town government, and I'm enjoying it. In terms of other related activities, I served as president of Cohasset Maritime Institute for about 10 years, continue to be active on the board there, and most importantly, continue to grow and enjoy the nautical experience there very often. Also been members of Cohasset Sailing Club, I think, since my oldest child was probably 10. She's now 32, so that's how I would qualify it. 22 years of sailing club. I've sailed there occasionally, but I keep a little whaler at the dock and enjoy it very much. My interest in Cohasset Harbor has really evolved from enjoying not just Cohasset Harbor, but as describing from Doctor's Island to the Gong Buoy to Scituate is sort of the waters that I know from my own experience, and I think they're fantastic. And I've, similar to Mike, just really believe that harbor is the jewel of Cohasset. Susan has joined us, so we have even more of a quorum. Susan Bryant, would you introduce yourself?
Yep, I'm Susan Bryant. I work at the Center for Student Coastal Research. My home affiliation is 251 Forest Ave, opposite George, basically. And my parents actually moved to Cohasset for the harbor. So I was raised at the yacht club and have great friends from the sailing club. And then once I came back here, CMI was going, and I was welcomed into that world, and I coach there, and I teach at CSCR with Jack Buckley and Fran Collins and Ann Tomei, and we have some new people there this year. So at CSCR, we are focused on education in the harbor. We're trying to get our students to be engaged in real world research there. And as such, we're out there at least during the summer season, all week, not so much on the weekdays because we try to leave weekends because we try to leave that clear for recreational boaters. But we're out there looking at the salt marsh, the flats, the rocky shoreline, the eelgrass, and we have projects that look at the water quality that ebbs out of the Gulf River and at the bacteria counts on the different beaches around town. And my personal interest in being in the Harbor Committee is to maintain a future-centric view. I deal with students who are going to be here a lot longer than any of us, and I like to make sure that we aren't trying to maximize everything for today and leaving them nothing for the future. So, and I try to listen and use design thinking principles in designing new solutions to things, and I'd like to see more of that continued throughout any town endeavors.
Thank you, Susan. Lori?
Lori Gibbons, I've been harbor master for 17 years. Lived in this town my whole life. I was a seasonal part-time harbor master for 8 years before that. I was a commercial lobsterman for 25 years out of Cohasset. I'm on the committee because I have to.
And she has to scold some of us even today.
It's according. Actually, so thank you. It actually leads us to the next thing. So there's a couple, so we won't have meetings like this all the time, but I thought I just wanted to sort of share my thinking about what we're trying to achieve. Share screen again, sorry. The whole screen.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I'll try to make it a little better. Come on. I don't want to read the whole thing, but so we're here because there's a Cohasset bylaw. And the bylaw, part A, is almost completely focused on who we're comprised of, which I think is a good representation of large groups who have a strong interest in harbor. So I think it's, I appreciate the construction. The next part, which should be B, is really states, is the simple statement of our purpose. The Harbor Committee shall make recommendations to the selectmen and town meeting concerning the operation of the harbor. When I look at that, and as I'm constructing the agenda and soliciting agenda items from the committee members, it is with the intent of tackling things that we can tackle and potentially or should tackle, and with the idea of providing recommendations to the select board. When I say that, I think typically it's the chair that leads those recommendations. I want to be as transparent about that as possible, so that we know we're going to select board. Others may participate. I just want to make sure everybody is aware on this committee of how we're approaching and how we're positioning things with the select board. There is one other place I'm just going to look. I actually use the website, and the Cohasset mass.org website, I think, is pretty good. Our website is good. Anybody who ever wonders how to find us, you go to the main page, wherever it is, and very nicely, Cohasset Harbor Committee is right at the top of section H. So that's a great way to find us. And I know you guys all know this, but this is where you can find Harbor Committee meetings, when they are and when the agendas are. It's a really easy place to find it. I think the other thing, this is a not bylaw stated purpose, but we're responsible for making recommendations to the select board, and it says town manager concerning operation condition. And I think it does add something that Mike talked to, which is that the Cohasset Municipal Harbor Plan is a great guideline for us in terms of, it identified a bunch of future projects and current concerns. And I think we're still relatively close enough to it that it's a helpful document, and I think we'll continue to be. Any questions, observations
I
about
just want to make a comment
how we
that
do
I'd like to do a shout out to Montana for all the hard work she's put into beefing up Montana, who's our planner and the liaison from the town department to this committee, and all the hard work she's put into bringing this website up to this page, our page, our landing page. It's such a great.
And another topic we're going to talk about tonight, is the very recent Woods Hole Group study. So there's a whole section on the Cohasset website page. This is a link to that whole large section and all the documentation associated with it. So anyway, that's my thought. I look to the committee to help keep me honest and us honest in terms of what our purpose is and what we do with it, which is to provide advice as an advisory board to the select board. Next, I'm just going to pull up the minutes from our previous meeting. These were sent out earlier. I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes from our previous meeting.
Move to accept the minutes.
Is there a second?
7.
Second.
Just looking, we had 10 people at it. It was a very short meeting with only a few topics. Those that there they are. Are there any changes or other comments on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The minutes are approved. We'll get them posted soon. Next on the agenda is elections. According to at least the town committee guidelines, in addition to a chair, we should have a vice chair and a secretary to keep minutes. I would entertain nominations either of yourself or of others to fill first the position of vice chair.
I would like to nominate or ask to be nominated for the position of vice chair.
Okay.
Can we go over what the responsibilities are of vice chair?
Are you coming back, I hope? Yeah, good. Responsibilities are to assist the chair, to stand in for the chair when the chair's not available. General. Are there any other? Sean, I know you're online. Anybody else want to submit a nomination for vice chair? Hearing none, all in favor of Lisa as vice chair, signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, Lisa.
Is that-
I didn't call ahead on this one, but I am accepting nominations for secretary. Is there anyone who would like to nominate somebody or nominate themselves?
And that's the person who's taking minutes, and are there any other responsibilities beyond the taking of minutes?
No.
They have to, so who is in charge of posting agendas and all that? That's right.
Typically, the chair creates the agenda and hosts the agenda working with Montana. The minutes get written, they get distributed to the committee in draft form. This is what I've been doing for a couple of years. We approve them at the next meeting, and then the town clerk is the one who posts them to our website as approved minutes.
Could offer to do that. I hate to be the only female that's offering to do that because that's a bit of a historical gap, but I do think I take pretty good notes.
You'd have to be here all the time.
It's true.
If
No
that's
more
a-
working on the harbor.
Well, we have scheduled meetings, so hopefully
Yeah.
people can arrange their schedules, but that would be great. I appreciate your volunteering that nomination. Is there anyone else who would, other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of Susan as secretary of the committee, signify by saying aye.
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 You are elected. You're an elected position in the town meeting.
You're welcome.
Next time you have to bring a pen.
I have a pen, I have a computer, I brought my computer on my bike, just in case. Perfect.
I am going to just go
So
back
you would like
to.
me to start now?
Sure. I'm taking
Lisa's
some notes.
been-
If you want to take some notes, that's great.
If you can.
Yep.
So here's and right now, also for the committee, you guys are all sitting here and there's no special knowledge by the chair, but I've scheduled them the meetings for an hour and a half.
That's good.
And we'll try to stick to that. The timings are approximate, they're just sort of my guesses on how it works. Lori will get her harbor master report. I propose we skip past that
Wait.
when she comes back.
What was that?
Lori's
Oh,
next
harbor
on the
master
agenda,
report. Okay.
and she's
Step away.
So Montana, I'm wondering if you would be kind enough to start with your agenda item.
Yeah, do you want me to come up there so Sean can see, or,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm right here, honestly.
Yep, that's perfect.
Yeah, so as you guys know, we just wrapped up, the Coastal Zone Management Coastal Resiliency Grant for 2023. And that was mainly focused on resiliency studies. At first, it was for Elm Street, Margin Court, Summer Street, that corridor that has been a huge focus for the town. And then after doing some stormwater studies and looking underneath the roadways, with James Brook Watershed, the biggest concerns were Summer Street, Border Street, Elm Street, and we started to move away from Margin Court. I know it has huge flooding issues. That was the decision of the Woods Hole Group, and just where we could maximize profit and time and their resources. So we wrapped it up at the end of June, and they came out with a few options. So the first one in terms of local was Westgate Lane, which is completely private property, and elevating their roadways. And then on Summer Street and Black Horse Lane, elevating roadways and creating concrete walls for protection, which also kind of involves touching private property. And then working with the Border Street Bridge. We left that behind since that was just under construction relatively recently. And then the other one was raising the roadways to the wastewater treatment plant. So after a lot of talking about budget and how far we can extend ourselves on resources, we actually applied for 2 different projects in this year's CZM Coastal Resiliency Grant Program. So the first one is flood mitigation pathway designs. So we are going to raise the grass slopes of the Elm Street corridor and where the new construction's going. And then if you move a little further down towards Summer Street and Black Horse Lane, they're gonna straighten up the tide gates. They're gonna retrofit it. And then they're going to raise the roadways over there. So that's one project, and it's about, we're looking at like 120K. And then the second project, which is significantly larger, also we're working with Woods Hole and, so sorry, I'm trying to think who we were just working with. 1 second.
What's another private group?
Another private consulting group. We were just working with them.
Not FOG Engineering.
Weston and Sampson, sorry. Weston and Sampson, Woods Hole Group on that project. And then on the second project is focusing on 16 sewage manholes for the wastewater treatment plant, and also repairing the sewage lines underneath because there's a lot of leakage that we found during the resiliency study. So we are going to be working with Woodward and Curran. And Woods Hole Group is going to play a smaller part on this project because it's significantly more engineering. And it's going to be a lot, but hopefully we are accepted. It's going to do a lot for us in terms of resiliency and mitigation efforts, looking at like the 2050 flood maps, if you guys had time to look at that. I will kind of be the project manager for both of them. Brian Joyce, because he has the knowledge and the background in both of those fields, is labeled as the project manager. I will be doing a lot of the administration work, communications, running the meetings like I did last time. But we literally just applied yesterday at 4:00. So hopefully we'll find out by September. But those are really the 2 big ones that have to do with the harbor at the moment. We applied for 2 others with MVP. MVP 2.0 is their very new grant program, and we are looking like we will be accepted. MVP is a little slower from what I can tell with who is accepted and who is not, but it's a seed project. So it's a 24-month program. Basically, the first 8 months, we would be working with different members of the town, non-governmental organizations, different committee members, talking about what the town is looking for, redoing that MVP 2018 list. So high priorities in terms of open space, harbor, recreation, public works, all these sorts. And then the following months after that will be implementation and organically creating this plan that everyone is in favor of, instead of applying for a grant that we already have a plan for. It's going to be created throughout the project. So that we are also hoping to hear back from in September. It is very fresh and new, so they said, be kind with us. And then MVP 1.0, the planning grant is mostly focused on alternative energy committee that was applied by Virginia Lee Claire. So I was kind of hands off on that. And then there's one more, the CZM water quality grant was applied by Charlotte, our conservation agent, and Ginny Lee Claire. And they're focused on originally redoing the stormwater bylaws, but now they're doing a resiliency study at Straits Pond Waters Association and working with the town of Hull to figure out how to improve the water quality. And then if they are accepted, everything goes as planned with also with Weston and Sampson. They're going to do kind of a similar thing with CZM like we're doing right now. Then they'll do the implementation and the structural and the design project for 2025. So that's what's going on right now, but it's all up in the air until we hear back in like September.
Are you ready to take questions?
Sure.
For the first work that you described that is addressing resiliency issues, were those sourced directly from the most recent Woods Hole Group study?
Yes.
Well, I guess they presented a lot of options with a lot of different cost factors. What, at a high level, what was the process of identifying which options to choose? And, you know, was Brian, Joyce, you, Cassandra, who else was involved in sort of selecting those for grants?
So Michelle Leary, the big boss, was the deciding factor at the end.
What's her title now?
She is, yeah, assistant town planner. So what it came down to, so Woods Hole Group obviously has like no bias towards private or public property. They're just looking at what's the most endangered, what's the most flood prone. So once we started talking about private property, that crossed out majority of Black Horse Lane and Westgate Lane because no one wants their personal driveway shut down for over a year with no access. So that knocked out those two topics. And then we looked at the breakwater because that's what residents were looking for. But at the end of the day, it's not going to protect us by 2050. It's only really going to mitigate a slight amount by 2030. Oh no.
Yeah, your
That is weird. Hold on, give me 1 second.
your computer just kicked you out or something.
Let's,
We're still here, I think. Sean, can you hear us all right?
I made this thing the co-host, so. Let's see. Sean should still be there.
He is
He's-
still here. I just don't know if he can hear us through the mic.
Oh,
Hello?
Okay, Sean, we hear you. Can you hear us still?
I just cut off a little bit. I'm in my driveway.
Oh, I'm sorry. We just had some technical challenges here. I just make sure we're still online. Thank you.
all right. I luckily made this thing the co-host, so, okay, here we go.
Perfect.
But also a big component was there was already a raised road project in the queue for the past 5 years. So we are combating our town funds with asking for grant funding and something else in between, but the timing's matching up the most, and Brian Joyce already has all the plans laid out. So that's why the sewer manholes and repairing the pipelines is gonna come first, and then we're gonna raise the roads and repave them. So this is gonna be like it's a 2-year project, 2024 to 2025. But that was really the biggest deciding factor. And because we're already repaving and redoing those roads, that's why we chose the second project of raising like towards Summer Street and doing the concrete wall. It worked best for everyone. Brian, yeah, no. Brian has all the knowledge, and he was like, this is what I have going on, so.
These are grants to actually do the work.
Yeah.
Not just plan the work.
Oh, we are asking for about 1.2 million.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, we talked to CZM. They were extremely happy that we did the resiliency studies with them prior, and we brought these projects to them. They were happy. They were excited that we were making a full circle, continuing with the resiliency studies. So, I mean, they can only say so much, but we're looking good right now.
That's great. I may have other questions as we get into another.
Sure.
topic. Go ahead, Mike.
I've got a question. So as I understand it, I haven't seen the resiliency study. They're going to raise the roads to roughly 12.8.
I don't know the exact number, but I'm pretty sure it's somewhat around there.
So
About-
Or
Summer
inch,
Street-
sorry, maybe inch, wait.
So Summer Street is roughly at elevation 8 or 9. And they're going to raise it 3 feet. And that's not going to disturb the people's homes and driveways and all that stuff relative to Black Horse Lane and the private road that goes up to the home that's up on the hill on the Gulf.
So,
So the option has been, they're going to raise parts of Summer Street to create that as a dike. Everything towards the Gulf still floods. And the disruption for the road being raised relative to people's driveways, front steps, front yards, all that stuff is acceptable to those neighbors on Summer Street?
we are in the preliminary stages.
And we have Weston and Sampson studying this?
Weston and Sampson is focusing on the design aspect of it, and then Woodward and Curran is helping with the waste treatment and the sewage manholes. Everyone is fully aware of what will and is going to happen. We haven't, but I don't believe Brian or the town has notified neighbors, but if we are accepted, then we will start to notify people.
Will there have to be any sort of permitting process?
Oh, yeah,
So
there,
will be,
yeah.
Public comment period, there will
Yes.
be some sort of adjudication of the proposal.
Oh, there's gonna be multiple meetings prior to anything starting. There's gonna be open comments because there's probably, we estimated about 6 months for the permitting process, if not a little more, because Brian was aware that this is gonna take a while. There's gonna be 2 permitting processes because there's 2 different constructions.
How far did they chase Summer Street?
Not that far, like, I have lived here for 12 years and,
South Main Street?
no.
How does,
You got a map up?
there's no high ground anywhere near there, so how does the higher grade on the road tie off to create a barrier?
Give me 1 second, I can pull up the figure
This
for
might be
you.
something we ask for presentation on, and I don't know if it's fit.
Yeah,
You might not know these
Yeah.
answers at this point.
I don't know all the answers.
Well, I think maybe that I did have in the agenda, the next topic was to talk about the resiliency study. And I think, sort of syncing up between what the town, I understand the deadlines, you got to apply for grants by the deadline, and you got to put something out there. That being said, Mike, I think you have experience with projects that are proposed and the townspeople not being excited about them, and that ends up, the select board then doesn't move forward with things. So,
So
yeah,
this is what we're looking at right here. So the grass slope side on the corridor, raising the town road near the new complex, retrofitting the tie gate into James Brook. The sheet piling retain, yes, it's in there. Depending on how things go, we'll see. And then this is Summer Street, so up here would be the Cohasset Harbor.
Montana is the grant request, this is a public document that we can.
Not yet. I'm kind of showing this as a favor just because my words aren't explaining better, but
Okay.
not yet. I have to talk to Michelle and Cassandra a little more about it.
Yeah, but I think, we're trying to understand the role of how the harbor committee can collaborate with town employees. Certainly looking, the study was ginormous.
Yeah,
The range of options. was ginormous. All you're doing, not all, but if you're only seeking a couple $1 million, and there was $100 million worth of project in the study, we'd like to, I certainly see about going for stuff that's sort of shovel ready. But we'd like to understand what isn't being pursued. And for what is being pursued, again, my experience in 2 years in Cohasset is how do you be effective? How do you have town employees work with committees like ours and others so that you have public support for things you do? And certainly in this, that I think to Mike's point, and I've seen it, almost anything that's proposed is challenging to the status quo in terms of road heights, what happens to private property, the parcel and stuff.
I will say after my first grant dealing with the harbor last time and not having a strong line of communication with you guys and knowing that you have opinions and knowledge on your end, I do, and I talked to Michelle and Cassandra and Nasser about this, about working with you guys more closely when we are able to, because I think there's a lot of things that can be shared and used from each other. So I will say that. I'm not sure when that will start or when those times will take place, but I definitely do want to make an effort of your committee and the project working closely together. So, because I know there's a lot of residents and committee members want, the presentation comes and you're like, oh, I didn't know about this and how can I help? And then we're already kind of in the next step. I don't want that to happen in this grant if we are accepted. So just so that is known moving forward.
I think actually we're in a good position because this committee has so many different constituencies and each of our organizations has its own constituency. So when we, committee members, are informed of what's going on in the harbor, we can actually help spread accurate knowledge out to our people that we see every day. And that can be really helpful because to help communicate the actual facts, when sometimes you can only communicate in a certain way, but we can communicate as, educators or as coaches or as, we're at a board meeting and we can say, this is coming down the pike, this could be good for our organization, this is difficult, but it's going to be good for the long-term sustainability or something. So I think that one of the nice things about this structure of this committee is that we each have our home bases that have a lot of people. So communication from you guys to us, and if we can spread that back, that's going to be useful in keeping the dialogue truthful and accurate and hopefully constructive.
Yeah, I will say something that obviously as a resident, my parents are residents. I live in Quincy now, but something that I was really trying to do at the end of the last grant was that survey that I sent out to you guys. I was trying so hard to get the residents who are in that impacted area to listen to even 20 minutes of the final presentation so they can take that survey, because my parents who live in the flood zone area, and a few of you guys as well, they're like, why aren't more people sitting here? Because this is so concerning. And I think if people actually understood and knew about this knowledge, the room would be full. But I post on my private social media, I post on the town website, I talk to other residents, and I spread the word to you guys and other committees. But it's definitely something we need to work on, and that needs to improve, because I'm sure people who are doing constructions on their house or people who are moving and certain things like that, it's very important information to know. So
I think just comment, we've had success recently, and Mike can talk about it, holding public forums on specific topics and getting direct feedback. Most recently, thoughts around changes to Border Street and Oregon Street. We got great feedback in our resiliency forums a year and a half ago that Lisa and I co-led. So I think that's also an opportunity, Susan, it's not just us knowing what we know, it's our ability to hold forums and get the public involved.
I will say, so something I'm working on just in my position in general is inspired by you guys in your regular forums. I want to start holding environmental seminars every other month starting in September, and I've tried to bunch topics together. And so when these seminars happen, we can do consistent updates to the residents so they're aware of the grants or the projects that are going on. Because I also think every time I have a conversation with someone about environmentalism, the classic answer is, oh, I want to learn, but I don't know where to look, or I don't know who to talk to. So I want to start, it would be in this room, and I would have speakers on the special topics, and it would be recorded just so this information is sitting somewhere on the sustainability website, and then we can hyperlink it if it has to do with the harbor and stuff like that.
That's great.
Yeah.
So on this, Mike, you were sort of pursuing something and now you're not, but, which is, I do think there are next steps in terms of our being more aware. But also, in our next topic, I was going to walk through this, and we may be pursuing something which you've already pursued. So I don't want to waste that kind of time, or end up doing double work.
Right.
So to that end, being coordinated in what we might look at or pursuing, getting public opinion around certain areas where either you don't have the time or the forum for doing it. That would be helpful.
Okay. Yeah.
Other comments, Mike? Lisa?
Now you talked a lot about the MVP 1.0 and 2.0. Are those documents available that we can look at with the 2018
Yes.
document?
Those
It would be
should,
nice to see that as a base, to see.
The 2.0 is new, right? That's a new program.
yeah, 2.0 is new, but MVP 2018, if it's not on the website, I can send, it is, okay, I can send everything to you, but since we were one of the older towns that applied for that MVP program, that's why we're a higher priority for 2.0. So, but I can send you those as well.
If it's on the website, you can find it.
Okay.
At the bottom of our website, we have just a lot of documents. So it's worth looking at first.
So what's the timeline on these initial studies as far as in the process of developing the public?
So say we get accepted in September,
There's already people working, you said there's already consultants working on this.
we had to hire consultants to create the proposal and to create the application. So their proposal's sitting and waiting. They're defining everything further, having more conversations with Brian Joyce. That's all the information I have at the moment until we are accepted in September, unless something else happens.
Oh, I see. So basically, they're not already starting
No.
design, preliminary design intent for.
Yeah, they're working with what Brian has because the roadways needed to be there was already a project in queue, so they have design plans already, and they're looking at what Brian has, what they can work with, the resources they'll be able to allocate towards that, and also using the resiliency studies from Woods Hole Group from the past year.
So this was the 5-year-old standing plan to do something. that
Yeah.
uses the base.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think one thing I do want to do is make sure this meeting, and we're just trying to juggle the time. What I would propose to do is, in a moment, ask you to give a Harbor Master's report. I'm confident we'll get a concise, hard-hitting summary of that. We'll keep the Woods Hole Group discussion very short because we sort of covered some of that just now. And then Mike, so we'll go, actually what I'd like to do is Harbor Master report now. Then Mike will go to CHIP, the 805 topic, okay? And then I'm going to come back to the Woods Hole Group with proposed next steps on that. So Lori, what's going on in the harbor that you would like to share?
No, it's been a good year, so far. Quiet 4th of July. It's the rain.
Oh,
It's a rainy weekend.
thank you for the weather from your perspective, right?
Got it, yeah. I do have an update on Government Island Pier.
Excellent.
Just got it from Carlos today. Carlos is the engineer at Forth. His engineer is working through the notice of intent process with the town Conservation Commission. Once that's all through, they've gotten the issuance of the EOEA ENF certificate. And after they get the okay from the town, then they'll go to DEP, Army Corps, and CZM for their permits this fall.
Okay.
And that will have completed the first phase of the project so far,
Great,
and the money.
great. I have a minor update to that because I talked with Tom Bell, who's chair of the COM. And so this pier has been through an initial review with Concom, May 25th. And they're coming back for subsequent review. It's been extended a couple of times. Right now it's scheduled. So for those of us who want to get a clear understanding of it, they're coming before Concom on August 3rd. And that'll be posted on the agenda. Is that something you typically attend, Lori, among others, or no? Okay.
And what declaration are they seeking from?
Certificate to go ahead to apply to DEP, Army Corps, engineers and CCM. They need to have the town's blessing before they can go to those other agencies. And then after that, it'll start once we get refunded, get more money. Then they'll do the final design, specs, bid documents. They'll project the bid services, construction management, inspection services, and then the as-built, okay, close it up. But that's down the road.
I think, in our discussion, looking at this, assuming the estimate still comes in the range of 4 to 5 million to do this, the town, by definition, has to contribute 25% of its own money. So in terms of the capital outlay, and we all know there's a lot of competition for capital in this town, the town would need to allocate $1 to $1.25 million of its own capital in addition to these other grants to get it done, right? And so, I look at our relationship with the select board, getting close to it. I think Mike's on here, but Mike Dick. But at the most recent town meeting, citizens complained that we didn't have a view to all the capital projects coming out. And we didn't like having to vote on one-offs without knowing what the next the big capital request is going to be. So that's what I want to get back from select boards, is an understanding of being a citizen, also how that
Process works.
how the process works and how to make it so that this work that Lori, you're doing with Bob and all the work that's happening, that it can actually effectively be executed. And we need to, we can get these grants, but we have to solve, Cohasset has to solve for the capital.
And then they'll apply to Seaport Economic Council.
Sorry, did you?
Mike Dick wants to.
Oh, okay. Let me, Mike, go ahead, Mike.
I'm not sure if my camera's working, but can you all hear me?
We can hear you. Your camera's not working.
Yeah, I'm not sure what, apologies. George, it's hard to hear you, and I know that you referenced the cost of I assume the resiliency projects.
Actually, let me repeat it if you're okay, Mike.
Yeah.
We were simply talking about I'll speak over here.
Yeah.
We were speaking about the Government Island Pier, the fact that there's a known guesstimate that it's going to be a $4 to $5 million project. And to get the CZM grants and other grants, a condition of that is that the town would have to contribute 25% of the cost. So, we just anticipate that that's $1 to $1.25 million capital that Cohasset would have to contribute if that project is to come to fruition. I was commenting that at town meeting, there was frustration by the citizens that citizens didn't have a view to all the capital projects coming down and the ability to sort of call it prioritize what they're voting for. There, we can see you now, Mike. So I guess my question was, are you on capital budget working with select board, or is the work being done to try and put forth a public document where Cohasset citizens have a view to the capital projects coming down the pike in the next several years?
The answer right now is no. We on capital budget, along with advisory, have been trying over the last year and a half plus to get a long-range financial planning group going. And we have had difficulty with the select board wanting to go off in their own direction and do something different. I am hopeful, George, and everybody there, that this summer we'll see the gathering of the key stakeholders like advisory, like select board, like capital budget, and others that are stakeholders to begin to map this out. What I find valuable in what you just mentioned, George, is that the resiliency projects, to my knowledge, have not been itemized or added to a list, to a master list. And so I'll be happy to bring that to the table.
Okay.
I certainly want to inform our chair of the capital budget, Brian Host, and let him know that. And I think what I heard you say was 1.25 million.
Oh,
Not sure.
it's a guesstimate, but
Yeah.
that's,
Oh, I'm not sure, George, over how long a period? Is that a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year period?
I think we could provide more information, but, I'd also say maybe it didn't come out in earlier conversation. Yes, there are potentially a lot of resiliency projects. I think what we identified today as a committee is that the town and town employees are moving forward appropriately with certain of those projects. And that Harbor Committee, wants to find out how it can contribute and support those efforts. So we're a bit away from, figuring out which, I'd say from figuring out the details, but today was an opening to say that there's work to be done there.
Yeah, and I hope in the next couple of weeks, I'll hear that, yes, this long-range financial planning committee is going to reconvene. I've heard talk of stripping it down so that it's only the chairs of the various major
Yeah.
committees that would be on it. But I will make sure that this piece is brought in, if it isn't
Okay.
already.
Well, and what I could say is it sounds like there's a potential role for us to try and influence the
I would agree.
select board to say, we need this kind of information so that, we're not doing futile work.
Well, we
Right,
also.
but the Government Island project is not on any list that I've seen so far.
Okay, well, as one item, that should be on the list.
Absolutely, yes.
We're also in a particular position where our charge says that we are to report to the town meeting in addition to the.
Yeah.
So we're kind of even uniquely situated
Yeah.
to have a view and to present
Yeah.
it in the future.
But we can only be effective if we get some information out before there's an official meeting. 'cause
Well, we have
if
to
wait
figure
till
out what our
there's an
strategy is,
official
yeah.
meeting with the select board and we've missed talking to the planning board or we've missed talking to capital budget, then we're gonna be proposing in the dark.
I'm gonna go stand where I can't be heard,
You
but
can
thank you,
do
Mike.
the whole thing.
I might do that.
Just
Well,
one more thing, George, and that is, I'll be happy to be a liaison between this committee and capital budget.
We know where you live. Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you, Mike. Thank you for that. Lori, what other topics come to mind that are?
Continuing on the pier, Seaport Economic Council, the grant filing for this year is October. So if we want to try and get something from them, we have to submit our grant by October 1.
And FOD, the engineering firm is completely focused on those kind of deadlines,
Oh, yes,
right?
this is from fall.
Yeah, I mean,
So
that, they work toward those deadlines, right? Yeah.
And do we have something in the pipeline to shoot for?
Don't know.
And is this something that has to go through the selectmen, right? Yeah, so, yeah, so it's
You
chicken
mean
and
a, you
egg.
mean a money number? Is that
No,
what you're
they
asking?
need
Yeah,
their
it's approval.
approval.
Yeah.
They have to approve the
The
grant
select board.
submissions.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then I've gotten a lot of good feedback on the new boat ramp. People seem to be happy with it.
A lot easier to float a boat off that ramp.
Yeah,
I can
that's
tell
for
you, I can
sure.
tell you that.
There's,
Yep.
I think there's a few adjustments I feel could be made, and I wish that they had done a little bit more design thinking and interviewing people and finding out
we
how
have-
many boats go
We had-
broadside and stuff.
We had Jack on, we talked to Jack about it.
Oh, not Jack.
I mean.
It's okay.
I mean, it's tricky to, now we have, like, if you want to launch a dinghy, you basically have to use the whole ramp to launch a dinghy or a stand-up paddleboard. So there's no small boat ramp anywhere anymore in town. And I think that we should consider where we might put a kayak launch, a stand-up paddleboard launch or something, so that we're not tying up the whole ramp from somebody who wants to launch a trailer with a dinghy.
Which actually leads us to a next topic.
Nice segue.
Other thoughts, Laura? You're good. Thank you. All right. Thank you for being here
Yeah,
on
appreciate it.
this. Mike, I'd like to ask you to talk, so the next topic we're talking about is Chip Captain's Walk, Elm Street, next steps. Mike, you have the floor.
Yeah, so the Cohasset Harbor Infrastructure Planning Working Group, which is what I referred to earlier that I'm on with George. We have developed the feasibility studies for the Captain's Walk, which would extend from basically, the Captain's Walk is already an existing system, which starts over on Government Island, over basically opposite Lori's office. And it extends all the way around over to basically the northwest corner of the other estate. So the feasibility studies took into account the surveying of Border Street and Margin Street. I mean, these are topographic surveys, which give us the understanding of dimensional constraints and dimensional opportunities relative to road widths, property lines, locations of seawalls, et cetera, et cetera. And the desire to have this Captain's Walk ultimately have a connection to the Elm Street improvements that were also in the pipeline being planned before that, where the sidewalk system would be widened literally from as far to the west to Brook Street or beyond as possible, and all the way to Government Island, primarily because the resource of walking along the harbor's edge is so attractive. And it's also something that ties into the usability of the walk system for safety reasons for the kids that are actually going to the sailing club. And with the Elm Street improvements, there would also be wider sidewalks for kids that actually fork off down near the triangle and get over to the yacht club. So the summertime, kids on bikes conflict with people walking, people with strollers, people walking side by side, people with their dogs is very real, and is part of the impetus for basically making the connection between the harbor and the village stronger. So the Captain's Walk feasibility studies were basically in public forums in I think it was in January and in March or so this past year.
December, January.
December and
Oh,
January.
and you did something in March with the neighbors.
And that was fairly well attended by the public. And it's been quiescent ever since. Elm Street actually kind of was studied back in 2020 and by engineering firm, and with the Elm Street Corridor Working Group being an offshoot of the Harbor Committee as well, which was represented, had representatives from Select Board, engineering, members at large, Harbor Committee, et cetera. And that was something that was developed only to a certain point. It was resurrected by some requests by Select Board people through Ralph Dormitzer to get it going again so that something could possibly be evaluated. The Elm
Yes,
Street.
was that resurrected this year?
Yeah, in basically at the end of last year. It started again in January.
So it has life again.
Well, the reality is that the water project, which basically tore up Elm Street, obviously has necessitated the need for Elm Street to be repaved. And so the repaving of Elm Street has been sort of on the list of things to repave for the last year or two, three, since that sewer work was done, or water work was done. Now, I've been involved in this project again since January, and where we are currently on this is we have a plan that has been before the select board just 2 weeks ago, where the plan has received pretty much unanimous agreement. It hasn't been voted on. What's going to happen on Elm Street is the road is going to be modified to be 2 travel lanes, 1 parking lane. The south side curb line is going to move north. That will give us an additional 8 feet of improvement area. The sidewalk on the south side will be widened. We will end up with a grass strip between the sidewalk and the curb line, in which we're going to have elm trees eventually.
How about that?
And it goes on, it basically goes from Brook Street to Margin, and it goes around to Summer. So all those improvements are moving along. All we need to do is get the final disposition of the select board comments plugged into a plan, and the plan is already being estimated by a contractor, the town's contractor. So we are very close to being getting that pinned down from a cost standpoint, and then approved by the select board. And that project would be constructed next spring.
And that doesn't have to go to town meeting, it just, if it's.
Right, doesn't have to go to town meeting. However, I have to say that I'm a little concerned about what I just saw relative to the resiliency thing, because it does not pair well. Even though the resiliency the resiliency improvements that are needed can be, in my very humble opinion, can be completely accommodated without that significant disruption on Cove Street and Summer Street, Border Street interface. So I don't know, I don't quite understand at this point where this fits relative to Brian Joyce has been involved with Elm Street. And now we got this going on, and it's like one thing is not talking to the other. So we'll have to wait and see. We have a meeting, I presume, next week with Brian and the contractor, and we'll have to figure out where this goes from there. But anyway, the long and short of it is that between the Elm Street proposed improvements and the feasibility of a much wider sidewalk system along the harbor's edge all the way to Government Island is something that the CHIP working group here is promoting, and the neighbors are fully on board. The ones on Border Street in particular, we've had meetings with them. And I think if all we have to do is just sort out the resiliency piece, plug it in, and we'll be in a position where maybe we can try to seek funding for those improvements. So
Thank you, Mike. So I'll add as a member of CHIP, anybody on this group, we can set up subcommittees to pursue anything. I think there's still an opportunity, both looking at funded, grant funded, Brian Joyce level, shovel ready projects, as well as looking, I think, Susan, to your point, at maybe doing also a recreational overlay. Noel Collins keeps talking to me about, can I put in another dock? I do think there's something this committee could look at or be a sounding point for the use of the harbor in addition to walking, looking at the maybe resurrecting the idea of a parking lot over on Margin Street that would have potential access for folks to put in kayaks in, looking at what are the opportunities, as Susan mentioned, for small boats coming in at Mariners Park. Is there, other ways to accommodate that with space that's there? Don't have anything written and it's not solid.
There's
but
also a concerted effort in the works right now to try to by a group of citizens to
acquire the Butler estate.
Acquire the Butler estate through a nonprofit organization, which would give the town citizens access to that piece of land. There's the possibility, because we would have that as publicly accessible, that there could be consideration if there's room for additional functions there that are harbor related, like more docking systems or dinghy spaces, or perhaps even kayak launching or something, who knows?
Nice.
But there's a number of ideas that are being kicked around, and there's multiple ideas that could be consistent with that property's use that aren't necessarily mutually exclusive.
Good.
That's something that I'm also involved in a little bit. I'm actually having a meeting tomorrow with somebody on that. So
Cool.
we'll see where that goes. But the pie in the sky thing would be Government Island at one end, Butler Estate at the other end, and we have this incredible infrastructural system that is for the use of all the public along the harbor's edge. It would be a real feather in Cohasset's cap to basically have such a wonderful resource for such amazing access by the public.
Lisa, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just, and I apologize, maybe I just haven't kept up to date on the CHIP project, but I didn't realize that the Harbor Committee was meeting with neighbors and such.
Chip had public meetings back in
But I'm saying-
December and
but-
January.
No, I'm familiar with that, but I'm saying, is that you're referring to recent other meetings with the?
Well, there was, so the two forums that George and
No, yeah,
I,
I remember those, they were great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
out of those forums, people who did not attend, there were all these rumors flying
Sure.
around. And part of the rumor mill was pretty much centered on residents around the harbor.
Sure. Mhm.
So one of them reached out to me to come over and just explain information that we represented at the forums. So
Mhm.
it was not a public hearing. I was the only one there to basically represent what we had discussed at the forums. And they were completely on board with the idea. Obviously, design is not finalized by any means. It's just a series of feasibility studies, as you know.
Yep.
And, but there was no public meeting associated with it.
I think,
It was a private session, basically.
I
We
was-
just have to be super careful under the open meeting and anything
Yeah.
like that.
but it wasn't. So
Yeah.
I was encouraged by that. I
Mhm.
think to make real progress on that, in addition to funding, we need a lot more public awareness.
Yes.
So there'd be, and that's probably one of the biggest challenges of anything we do is somehow getting the citizenry to be interested in some of these projects we're doing, enough to show up at meetings,
So
information meetings.
is the next anticipated step for CHIP to come to the full Harbor Committee to get endorsement and then to take it to the selectmen? I mean,
I
that's
think,
kind
I
of.
think we have more to do still.
Okay,
I think we have
Yeah.
more to do before we're, say, here's the plan we're going to take to select board.
sure.
And it does make sense to, I think it makes a lot of sense to coordinate anything about the harbor walk with resiliency plans, because we hate
Absolutely.
to have like a gorgeous,
No,
interpretive
that's exactly right.
stuff and
That's
then
just-
be
yeah.
like, oh, wait, we
What-
have to jack this up 3 feet.
We knew the resiliency schedule was coming, and we did this work to sort of validate a few concepts. And then when we had clarity on the resiliency options, to then examine how those play with this.
And
And we
some-
haven't done that.
And some of it could even be helping foster some awareness about the need for some of
Yeah.
the things that people aren't going to like so much.
Yeah.
I could tell
climate
you.
change, and if you show a, old tide line from an old storm, be like, we actually have experienced tides up to here in the past.
Yeah.
Well, that's what this
So,
organization.
Yeah.
so it's like a nice historical way of raising awareness and sensibility about the need, the real need to prepare for more.
I saw some interesting
Spirit weather.
things done in Nova Scotia along the water after they've done some resiliency, and they literally they have, a pole with the line that's about 10 feet over your head
Oh.
with the
Oh,
tide
my.
coming in various places,
Oh, good.
and that got people thinking, that's for sure.
I was in Kentucky on a service project last week, and the town that I was in had a 15-foot wall with huge barrier doors to close because of the horrible floods that they've encountered. So they had big federal money flood walls in this tiny little coal town that I was in. Pretty interesting.
And you see some
Just we're
getting up again.
well, just another couple topics. I think I just wanted to share a little bit about the resiliency study. We've talked about it. Montana's obviously with other people's moving forward with it. The presentation that Nasser gave at the town hall or at the library, there was maybe 12 people there. And I think I was the representative of Harbor Committee. Not to chide this group, but there's just not much either public awareness or public interest. I think there's an opportunity for us to dig in a little bit more, working with town employees to bring some more of it to light. And I think also, as Mike talked about, to put it within the context of what we heard from residents about potential improvements for walking, for the road widths. I think to put it in the context of other improvements to the harbor for recreational purposes. I think there's opportunities for us to do that. And then to present more of an integrated plan to the select board. But Lisa, to your point, the Harbor Committee is the one that is charged with recommending things to the select board. Chip, I think can recommend things to Harbor Committee, and then we work that way.
Right now, I also think that we can use presentations to the Harbor Committee as a bigger public forum
Yeah,
to discuss this.
They're-
I mean,
they're
if we-
public meetings.
We get public meetings, we get the room, we get the time, it's on a schedule. And, shoot for that date to whatever
Yeah.
date that is, whatever month that is, to have that purpose. It's really, losing the Mariner is a big loss. It really is.
Yeah.
And it seems like nothing has been recreated. I know 143 on Facebook, not everyone's on Facebook, and I know there's other avenues, but it'd be really great to try to figure out some communication model for us to get these things out.
okay.
Well, one of the things that I think we need to somehow be more proactive about relative to the committee is we need to get some of the things that we're all discussing and or studying in front of the select board, so they're aware that there's
Yes.
this stuff going on, even though it might be in its initial stages. Because what's happening, what I've experienced, is that the town tends to jump on getting something studied, and there's already something that's happened that's actually ahead of that. So like this resiliency study, if we get engineers starting to study raising the roads, they're not even aware of what's going on elsewhere that is feasible.
Oh, particularly these third-party engineers.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so if the powers that be that make the decisions to execute a contract or relative to consultants or do whatever, if they are aware that something else is going on, they might even say, well, wait a minute, let's talk to the Harbor Committee before we jump on that, because we need to dovetail this and understand if there's implications.
Yeah.
So it's like Elm Street. The working group already pretty much had a direction on what to do. And the consultant came in and said, well, if we're going to make a stronger connection between the harbor and the village, we need to make the whole thing bigger. They were recommending public property taking to make the connection stronger.
I mean,
Yeah.
private property taking?
Yes.
Private, I was gonna say.
Okay, so the thing is that basically because they weren't aware of what was going on over here. This consultant, was paid tens of thousands of dollars to do all this stuff. And where did we end up? Where the working group started. That's
Right.
where we've ended up.
So local people tend to know things.
Well, we just need to
And we-
communicate better between the big
Right,
groups that are
but
doing the
I would say
work.
that, I would say that when we hire consultants, we really do need to make them talk to local people so that the common sense things that local people know are integrated early instead of as now we need to retool the thing that's gonna cost you an extra X number of dollars because we now have to redo all of our consulting work.
Yeah.
No, they need to start with asking a lot of questions.
That's exactly
And
right.
I'm disappointed with some of the stuff that's going on, and I feel like when we hire consultants, we really need to make sure that they have a strong sense of getting out there and asking and everybody exactly how things are used, and really doing that research first before they start drafting a bunch of stuff.
As far as the Elm Street corridor initiative, that was part of the master plan, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was the enormity of it. And having a piece of it deal with this, while the Harbor Committee was over here, and our work on resiliency and everything else, I think at one point there wasn't really a lot of communication. But I think we have a huge opportunity right now.
Yeah.
And once again, forgive me if I throw another kudo over to Montana, but because I think you're engaged, you're coming to our meetings, you were kind of the circle of the wheel that you can relate to those individuals who are working on some of these things.
Yeah, Montana could say,
Yeah.
wait a minute, there's something else over
Yeah.
here that you need to be aware of and we should
Right.
probably talk to.
Yeah.
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 So
Totally.
I know we're kind of getting.
Well, I think also the opportunity is, so we only have part, and Sean Keneally was here. We have other members who aren't.
He's still here. You just can't see him
Yep.
up there.
But so it's great Sean is here. We need,
Other
it would be,
engagements.
Chip is not the only one. There's way more work to do than
Right.
Chip can do.
Right.
So I want to find a way between now and next meetings to say who can participate in the effort.
Yep.
I am aware of the time,
Mhm.
so are there other topics to discuss before we adjourn?
Can I propose that we at least get dates of next things that we should attend into the minutes?
The only one I knew was Conservation Commission on August 3rd. At least that's when it's scheduled. You have to look at the agenda. If, for those who want to have a view into the Government Island Pier and what's said before Concom.
And does anybody else know of any other events?
Nothing right now.
So
Is the Woods Hole group done with there's no more follow-up or there's no more interface with them with anybody else for
No, as
follow-up
of,
projects that they may not be involved in?
no, we're done with the resiliency studies as of June 30th. The fiscal year is over, so we're just wrapping up reimbursements. I'm just trying to promote that survey that I sent out to you guys a few weeks ago. That's just something, it's gonna be useful for like the next 5 years because of the flood maps that we have. So I'm just trying to use that for any upcoming grant. As of right now, we're in limbo between ending and being accepted for the next grant cycle. So there's anything to do with CZM, MVP, or anything at the moment.
But we do have this.
So our next meeting is, we're going to try and stick these meetings.
Mhm.
It's the second Wednesday every odd month. That's September 13th. Those are not the only meetings. They can't be the only meetings. So as we have other meetings, we can, anytime, let's say 2 or 3 of us get together on a topic, we just need to post it 48 hours ahead of time with Montana, and we can meet, and we should do those.
And to that end, that some of the members of the government subcommittee have been away, and so we haven't planned one for the last month, but we hope to post one probably next month to start looking at some of the other governance issues that were enumerated in the charge given to us by the selectmen.
Yeah.
Which I believe is posted on the, but I can send it out to you if you have it.
Yeah, I can post it for you.
So no date yet for that.
No, I have to ask them when they're available.
But, we don't have to announce all meetings now.
Right.
If somebody wants to
True.
have a meeting, have a meeting. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, and thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
Everybody.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.